right, let us go ahead and get started. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into this. If you picked up notes for this morning, first of all, my apologies. The copier did exactly what it was supposed to, but some old guy didn't feel like folding them today. And I don't know who it was, but he's up here somewhere. So apology number one. Next, what else did I have next? If you read through the Bible, there are a couple places where you have people that legitimately, and then realized that God is still God, but they would question God just a bit. You have David saying, how is it that the wicked flourish? How is this? And you have others where they're in a similar frame of mind as they're going through life and they're facing difficulties and challenges, and they wonder, God, why? If you want to, let's see here, let me find it. Let's see here. Take your Bibles, go to John chapter 9. We'll start there. We're not at the lesson yet. It'll come up in a minute. We got plenty of time, or not. John chapter 9. One of those verses I read and I'm like, Look at verse 4. And then consider my life. I work nights. Well, if no man can work, I'm going to quit my job. It's interesting because you read things like this and you look back in history, and I tease my wife that she's solar powered. Sun goes down, she's out. Meanwhile, sun goes down and my day is just getting cranked up. And it's interesting because you read verses like this, or you go back in history, and when the sun went down, their workday was done. Basically, when the sun went down, life was done for the day. Sun comes up in the morning, it's time to get back at it again. And you read verses like this, do the works while it's day because night's coming. Nobody can work at night. And a lot of times we read and we don't understand the context. Not the biblical context, but the historical context. We don't understand how real a simple statement like that we just blow right through sometimes, how real that was to those people. If you're doing something and you need two hands, it's not like you're holding a candle or a lantern in one hand. And so I read it and it makes me laugh because my life now, and for the last 10 years, has been, well, I'm working at night. But I read it and like I said, it just makes me chuckle a little bit. If you want to we'll go to Ephesians 5, that's where we'll start. We'll get there in a minute or three. Let's see here. Let's look at a puzzle or two. Puzzle number one, and there are two today. Puzzle number one. We're close. The odds are overwhelming. Okay. Puzzle number two. What? Really close. And the only issue would be if I were grading in my old grammar teacher days, I would tweak it just a bit. It would be C, I to I. But yeah, so now we can get started into the actual important stuff here. Let's open with prayer and we'll get going here. Father, thank you so much for the day and for your goodness to us. Father, I ask that you would guide in all that we do. Give us wisdom and discernment. God, help us to use the time that you've given us wisely, that we can accomplish what you've set before us. We ask this in your name, amen. And I'm still not quite ready. One more thing. I'm getting close. For the last couple years, and this has literally been that, this year last, maybe this year and the last two, At this time of the year, I've shifted over and done Advent devotionals, Christmas season devotionals. Last year, I think, was by Chris Anderson. He's the guy that wrote My Jesus Fair and His Robes for Mine, things like that. It was like gospel meditations on, I don't think it was gospel meditations on Chris. His devotional studies are gospel meditations on missions and things like that. I don't think it was Christmas, maybe an Advent, I don't remember. This year, A.W. Tozer. If you've done any reading on from Tozer, incredible author, incredible preacher, and it is pretty simple. It's called From Heaven. I'd mentioned before, last week maybe, that I don't normally typically do seasonal studies. I leave that up to the preacher with the messages and stuff like that, but I had something I've been playing around with for the better part of a year. We've got a couple of weeks before we get to Christmas, not a whole lot. If you see the big Lamar digital billboards, what is it, 18 days till Christmas now or something like that? But there's a couple of weeks tucked in there, and I may use some thoughts from Tozer next week. We just completed the first week of Advent and starting into the second week today. Just reading this last week is like some incredible thoughts there that I was like, you know what, I think we may take some notes and build a lesson or two out of that. And there's still 3 weeks to go, so we'll see how that goes, but interesting indeed as we focus upon the birth of our Savior. Let's see here, Ephesians 5:16, simple verse, just kind of the springboard. Last week we just introduced time in general, really, the importance of time, using our time. Today is more related to time management as a Christian. What does God say about using our time? What does he say about using our time wisely and all? The statement in Ephesians 5 simply says, redeeming the time because the days are evil. And we talked about that last week. Again, just our starting point here. By way of introduction, some of this is review from last week. Then God created time. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning. Well, the beginning of what? No, and that's an interesting statement. The beginning of what? Because if God existed before then, was it really the beginning? I mean, if you're going to run a race, you typically start at the start. You don't start the race midway, unless if you're as old as I or older and you think of, I think it was the Boston Marathon or something like that. Back in the 80s, you had Rosie Ruiz that picked up the race in the middle and was given a medal, and then they realized she didn't run the whole race. You start the race at the beginning. Well, if God existed eternally, that's both ages past as well as future, then was it really the beginning? Well, it was the beginning of time as we know it, as humans know it. And so in Genesis 1, the clock began on time as we understand it. Now understand that time itself means more to us, to man, than it does to God. If God is eternal, and it tells us, and I think we've got the reference here, we had it last week, if it tells us that, 1,000 years with the Lord is go by like a snap. 1,000 years as a day. Time, what does time really mean to God? Time means a lot to us. We have a limited lifespan. What does God say? 70 years, and if by reason of your strength you live a little bit more? There was another case, and I mentioned it last week, there was another case this week of, this would be more in my world than for many of you, but Michael Annett was a NASCAR racer. He's not been racing that I know of for the last couple of years. He died this week at, I think he was 39, I think. Back when I was in Texas, at different times the chairman of the board, but he was a man who had been incredibly wealthy, and during the 1980s oil crash in Texas, his business partners robbed him blind. He started over, and he was then well-to-do, but he had a complete change of heart and mind as far as understanding what to do with your money. And so he was involved in a lot of building projects for missions and things like that. With his contacts at his previous church, our air conditioner, our HVAC guy, was a deacon at the big Southern Baptist church in town. Older guy, had his own business. His son died. And my preacher had gone to the funeral, and I remember Hans's wife said, and this is her comment, "Preacher, parents aren't supposed to bury their children." We have no guarantee. And yet to God, this sounds somewhat sacrilegious. Time is time. What's another day? To God, he can look back further than man can, and he can look ahead further than man can. And we are limited by the horizon in both directions, and he's not. Time means more to us. Hey, I've got to get this done. I'm going to run out of... God's never run out of time. God existed before time. And yet, at the same time, man measures everything by time. I just mentioned the digital billboards. How many days till Christmas? I will come home tonight, tomorrow. I don't know when. I go to work, I'll leave the house 9-ish tonight. At sometime tomorrow morning, I'll come home. I don't know if it'll be dark or light. If it's dark or light, I'll come home, and there's a big billboard there right off 15 that'll tell me how many days till Christmas. Affects me a little bit, because there's that continual reminder, hey, you better start your Christmas shopping sometime. But God's not dictated by time. Doesn't change what he's doing at all. Understand then that time is a gift from God. Of all of the many, and the word I use there is material, but all of the many gifts, the things that God gives us, time's the most precious. I mentioned my friend in Texas that had lost everything and had to rebuild. We look in the Bible, we see Job, who lost everything, and at the end, he was wealthy again. But we don't have the opportunity to make or generate more time. It's the one thing that we cannot replenish. And so we need to make the most of every moment. I'm not going to turn to the couple of verses that I have here in the intro, because we may turn to a few more as we get into the body of the notes itself, but we need to make the most of every moment. To help us to accomplish that, we need to understand that wasting time is dangerous. If I can't make more time, that means time that is wasted is gone and gone forever. Again, I started out going to John 9:4, kind of laughing, work for the night is coming. Well, I work at night. In their world, if you didn't get it done today, this day is done and over and gone by. You say, well, I'll just turn the lights on. They couldn't. Okay, wasting time is dangerous. We cannot get that time back. And so we need to live with eternity in mind. In order to do that, we need to live today by putting God first. A reference there, Matthew 6:30. We talked about that last week. And some of these references we did read last week. Okay? But seek ye, what's the next word? First. We need to put God first. And then again, we had it up a few notes, but God doesn't measure time like man does. If I put an event in my calendar, and I mentioned before, I do that all the time. I've got a fairly full calendar with events. Some I participate in, some I don't, but it helps me to know, hey, this is a possibility. When I put that in my calendar, it will ask me if I want to add a notification. Depending upon the event, I may add 0 notifications. I may add a few notifications. Like, if I need to be reminded to pick Josiah from school, I may have a 10 minutes prior notification. I live, 4 minutes from school? 3 minutes? And that includes the stoplight? Okay, I'm right there. So I may have a 10-minute notification to remind me to get up and get going. I may have a 1-hour notification just in case I happen to still be sleeping. I may have a day before notification to remind me that I need to set my alarm to get up. I may have multiple notifications. God doesn't need notifications. He's not governed by time. And again, the verse, we've already referenced it. With God, 1,000 years, 1 day, what's the difference? Go to James 4:14. James 4:14. Again, verses we're familiar with. Life is but a vapor. But a vapor. Whereas ye know not what shall be in the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. The word vapor there is a mist or a smoke. What I think of often is birthday candles. Blow out the candle, a little puff of smoke, gone immediately. You can have the fire pit in the backyard. Fire goes out, you got some smoke, and gone. It's here, and then it's not. And so what do we see from that? If your life is but a vapor, we see that time is fleeting. The hands on the clock don't stop because I need more time. Time is fleeting. Now, you're in a room like this, the big clock on the back typically has two hands. If you look at the small version of a clock on your wrist, if you happen to have one, it generally has numbers and no hands anymore. But if you had an old analog watch, it will have what's called a sweeping second hand. What does it mean? That hand keeps moving. The one I have on today is just, in fact, I didn't even change watch. It's my Garmin watch. But the one I usually wear to church, it's an old analog watch with sweeping hand. I think it's got a sweeping second hand. I don't even remember. I have to look at it. I never pay attention to the second hand. I look for the big hand and the little hand. But even those don't stop. Time is fleeting. Look at the verse, because the next one's close to it. Go to Job 7:6. We'll look at this one and the next. Job in chapter 7, verse 6 says, "My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope." What is he saying here? My days, they just keep going and going and going, and they're going quickly. Time is fleeting. Turn over to chapter 8, across the page, next page, depending on how your Bible's laid out. Chapter 8, verse 9. "For we are but of yesterday and know nothing, because our days upon the earth are a shadow." Look at B, time is but a shadow. It keeps going. And then Psalm 89, you can turn there if you'd like. Psalm 89 and 47. "Remember how short my time is. Wherefore hast thou made all men in vain?" Remember how short my time is. Time is short. When James writes, "Your life is but a vapor," he knew exactly what he was talking about. We look at it when we are kids, and each day takes forever, especially when it's first hour of school and you know you've got all day to be there. Each day takes. We look back now, we snap our fingers and 3 days have gone by. I joke at work, this last week was the longest decade of my life. It's like you're there for a couple days and where'd the time go? Time is fleeting. We need to understand that. If we don't have that in our mindset, going back to the introduction, we'll waste lots of time not realizing how dangerous it is. Next, time ought to be used rightly. Now, this set of notes here, the subpoints here, actually pulled out of the Thompson chain. If you look at his notes on time back in the appendix, I made a couple additions to it, but that's basically what he had there. We need to realize the brevity of time. Your life is but a vapor. Understand that life is short, eternity is long. All right, I might as well live with the long goal in mind. Live with eternity in mind. Time needs to be used rightly by our youthful piety. We won't look at these two verses here. Ecclesiastes 12:1. "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth." And in 1 Timothy 4, "Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believer." Youthful piety, what does that mean? Living How do I use my time wisely? By living rightly as a young person. How do I use my time wisely? By subordinating earthly duties to heavenly. Understand what's more important. You have the things that would be good to get done, the things that should get done, and the things that need to get done. So what do I focus on? The things that bring me pleasure and enjoyment. No, I need to focus on the things that need to get done. If it needs to get done, by definition, it needs to get done. How do I use my time rightly? By serious living. We'll look at Colossians 3. If you want to turn there, fine. If not, I will read it in a moment. Colossians 3 and 23. And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as unto the Lord and not unto man. By serious living. I need to live with a purpose in mind. And what is that purpose? To please Him. The second verse that we have there, 1 Corinthians 10:31, it says basically the same thing. Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. How do I use my time rightly? By a consistent example before the world. Let me flip over here to Titus real quickly. 2 and 7. In all things, showing thyself a pattern of good works, in doctrine, and showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity, and it continues on there. By having how do I use my time rightly? By having a good, solid, consistent example. In all things, showing thyself an example of good works. And so time. I need to use my time rightly. I joke at work. All different types of people work where I work. Like where you work or worked. But it's always interesting, why do people work the overnight shift? My simple answer is that I started at the overnight because there's a pay differential. And when I started, I needed the extra dollar or so. And so it helps. The other is because even though it seems like it doesn't work, it's what works best for my family in this particular business. The PMs, those that work the day shift where I am, they may start, the earliest they will ever start is 10 o'clock in the morning. And so they may work until 10:30 at night, depending on what time we fire up. Well, that means I would never see my wife and daughter. And so I work the overnights because I can see them in the afternoons before I take off in the evening. Well, there's interesting people who work that shift. Mine was, I was going to say, somewhat pragmatic, to get the pay differential and for scheduling purposes with the family. There are some people work the overnight. I think it's because they're scared of the sun. That's my personal opinion. But they spend all their time either at work or playing video games. And we're not talking all about 16-year-old kids. All right, we're talking about, I was going to say young adults. I don't know if I can rightly use the term adult, but it is what it is. But they spend all their time playing games. We need to understand the importance of time. And time's not just to be thrown away. We need to understand that we cannot presume that we have time. How do we do that? Well, we boast of the future. I'm not going to look at the verses here. We'll look at some of these thoughts will come up again here. I do want to look at one. Go to Luke chapter 12. Actually, didn't turn to it, but referenced it last week. Go to Luke 12. In verse 16. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room wherewith to bestow my fruits. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. There's the issue right there. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? There's nothing in the scripture that says, you know what, it's been a good day. I think tomorrow I'm going to take some time for myself. That's not what what's he saying? He's not saying he's going to take a day. He's saying, I've got many years' worth provided. And that's where the issue is. If some of you have had rather extensive gardens, perhaps some of you had gardens that were so large they were called farms. Can you presume upon the weather for next week? Think about that. Farmers will spend lots of money on irrigation, and then the skies open up and their whole field gets flooded. Or there's no rain at all, and all the irrigation in the world won't help when there's no rain. We can't boast of the future. We need to understand that, you know what, I need to live each day wisely. I can't presume. Same reference shows up under this next one here, planning for tomorrow's self-indulgence. His problem here is twofold. One, he says, you know what, I've got many years' worth. The second is, take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. He says what? I've been profitable. I don't have to work anymore. I'm going to kick back and enjoy life. He makes plans for self-indulgence, not for industriousness, not for work, not for taking a day, but for not have to work. I don't have to work ever again. One of the problems with presuming upon time is that we don't understand that the day of trial, or we think that the day of trial is remote. We could, if we die tomorrow, guess what? We're standing before God soon. Or maybe we're still living and we think that I don't have anything to worry about, and then all of a sudden we round the corner and there's a whole world full of headaches and heartaches. The day of trial, life is over, or, oh my word, what have I gotten into now? The day of trial is upon us. His issue here, we've mentioned this already, he's preparing for years and years of enjoyment. Again, it's not a huge problem to think of enjoying life. In fact, we'll get to that in a minute. But that's not what he's saying here. He's saying, I don't have to work again. Everything's covered. I'm good. Reckoning on future opportunities for reform. How many times have you talked to somebody, or maybe you've heard of somebody, I'm gonna fix this later. Hey, when are you going to deal with that? Tomorrow. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. I'm not going to improve myself tomorrow. I had a friend in Texas. My dad still chuckles about this, and we've been gone from Texas for 15 years now. He had a roadside fruit and vegetable stand, and he had a sign up on the back that said, all vegetables half price tomorrow. So you come in tomorrow and the sign's still there, which means that all fruits and vegetables are half price tomorrow. When does tomorrow arrive? It doesn't. And so if I say, well, I'm going to fix this character flaw tomorrow. No, probably not. And then indulging in dreams of future gain. Back in the early mid-'80s on AM talk radio. Was it Money Talk with Bob Brinker? I don't know how I remember that. But they used to have an announcement on there. Was it past performance is not an indication of past. I forget how it was exactly worded, but it basically said, your past results are not an indication of future performance. Talking about the stock market and things like that. Because he would give you all this financial advice, but he didn't want to be held liable if things didn't turn out the way that you thought it would. And basically, that's what this is saying here. I look at what's happened. Hey, tomorrow's gonna be man. I'm gonna be set for life. And what do we see with the rich fool here? He was set for till he put his head on the pillow, and that was it. So don't presume that we have time. We don't know how much time we have. We need to understand that prayer is a valuable use of time. I'm in Luke. I'm going to turn over to Mark 1. You can turn there if you want. If not, I will read it in a second. Mark chapter 1. Not the only verse that says this. There are others. If I'm not mistaken, there are 9 examples in the Gospels. Begin in Mark chapter 1, beginning in verse 12. It doesn't say it specifically. This is just the beginning of the passage here. And immediately the Spirit driveth him, that's Jesus, into the wilderness. And he goes into the wilderness, and he's there. He's gone into the wilderness. Jesus went aside to pray. There's like 9 different examples in the Gospels here. Jesus went aside to pray. One of these is after a long day, still in the same chapter, verse 35. And in the morning, rising up a great while before day, he went out and departed into a solitary place, and there prayed. He had a long day the day before. He gets up, he starts this next day in prayer. And it's alluded to here. I'm not going to turn to the Luke passage, seeing it's alluded here. He gets away, apart. Here it says he went into a solitary place. He gets apart from the crowds, away from the hustle and bustle, from the noise. Prayer is a valuable use of time, valuable enough that Jesus, who had an incredibly limited amount of time, and in his foreknowledge, he did know how much time he had. Incredibly limited amount of time, and he takes time and says, you know what? I've got to do the most important thing. I need to pray. And he goes apart to pray. I alluded to this just a moment ago. Rest is an important use of time. Not wasting time and being lazy. Not looking ahead and saying, I never have to work again. But rest is an important use of time. If we go to Genesis 2, creation, it tells us that God took time to rest. 6 days of creation. What did God do on the 7th day? On the 7th day, God rested. Now, did God need to rest? I can guarantee that God did not exhaust himself. God did not need to, and yet he did, and he told us he did, which is equally important. It tells us in the Gospels that Jesus took time to rest. I'm in Mark, so I'm going to stay in this book. I'm going to turn over to chapter 6 and verse 31. And he, Jesus, said unto them, Come ye apart yourselves into a desert place and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. He said, get away and catch your breath. Kind of an important thing to do. And if we wanted to go to Exodus, for the sake of time is brief, so we're not going to go there, but Exodus talks about the day of Sabbath. God instituted, he implemented a day of rest. God rested. Jesus gave us an example of rest. Back in Exodus, God told the children of Israel, you're not working on this day. This day is focused on me, and you need to take a breather. You need to rest. Rest is an important use of time. There are those who say, I'd rather burn out than rust out. Well, good. How about we try to manage both and not burn out nor rust out, but stay able to work and do the work that we're called to do. Next, we need to trust God with our future. For time, I'm not going to turn to the references. You can turn there. Jeremiah 29:11, 1 Thessalonians 5:24. But we need to trust God with our future. It does not matter how well I plan or how hard I work. I cannot make sure that tomorrow turns out the way I want it to turn out. But I can trust God. I need to live intentionally. What does that mean? Stay focused. We mentioned already, and we'll get, I'll pop all the four of them down here. Letter C says, focus on the highest priorities. I need to stay focused. You can focus on the highest priorities and then be easily distracted. Well, what does B? Minimize distractions. At work, I mentioned before, we have to do these safety conversations with all the employees. And one of them that comes up is make sure to take care of yourself physically. And part of it is to sleep well. And I can guarantee you that for those that work the overnight, that is a challenge. Okay? Some of you have worked the overnight. It's easy to say you're exhausted, you lay down and go to sleep. No, it's easy to say you're exhausted and you lay down. Go to sleep does not necessarily follow. And so we talk about, hey, turn off the notifications on your phone. My phone has preset do not disturbs. If you call my phone right now, it does not vibrate, it does not ring. It's up here, it's right here. It's on do not disturb. It goes on do not disturb probably at 9:30 and won't come off till 12, even though preacher's always done before 12. And if my daughter calls, my phone doesn't ring and I don't know she's called because it doesn't leave do not disturb till 12 or 12:05, something like that. Well, when the sun's up, whatever that's called, at like 9:30, my phone goes to do not disturb and doesn't come off till like 3 o'clock, I think. So I've told, Becky knows, you can call my cell phone, but I'm not going to hear it. If you need to get a hold of me, call the house phone, but you may have to call more than once because the volume's turned down in the bedroom. It's on, but it's turned down. We need to minimize distractions. And that means we need to be actively trying to minimize distractions because distractions are all over the place. If I'm going to live intentionally, I need to take the steps to make it easy to get done what I need to do. And I need to use my time to love others. I need to use my time that I have to invest in the lives of others. Life is to be enjoyed. Life is to be enjoyed for time. I'm not going to get here. But there's two passages there. You can look at them. But I should enjoy my life. That does not mean that I'm laughing and skipping as I go through life. I can guarantee you at my age that's not happening. Twist an ankle or something. But that's not happening. But I should still enjoy it. I should enjoy seeing God at work in my life. So let's run through the conclusion. First of all, time can be a tyrant. If you are governed by time and time doesn't stop, you can always feel like you're behind. And when it doesn't stop, you are getting more behinder and behinder, right? Time can be a tyrant. So I need to make the most of every opportunity. Make the most of it. I need to use the time that I have wisely. I need to use my time wisely. If I have a limited amount of time, and I've got but one life to live, I might want to make sure that the time that I have in this one life is used to accomplish as much as I can. I need to use my time wisely. We live on borrowed time. If I'm not guaranteed another breath, then that means while God still allows me to breathe, I need to understand that it's a gift from Him. Life is a precious gift. The time that we have is incredibly valuable. I'm on borrowed time. And yet, and this is exciting, God's timing is always right on schedule. We said just a couple points ago, time is a tyrant, not to God. I love Galatians 4:4. Again, I taught two subjects for a whole bunch of years. For the most of my teaching time, it was English grammar and history/social studies. But when the fullness of time was come, what does that mean? Right on time. For years and years and years and years and years, and years and years and years, the Jews had been looking for a Messiah. He was not late. He was right on time. And historically, when we go back and look at the history of what was taking place then, we can see that this was the absolute perfect time in order for Christ to come and the word of what was happening to reach the most people at any point in history up to that point. The Roman Empire with the Greek culture meant that everybody could get to and from, and the word could travel and everybody could understand it. And the combination of the two was basically their version of 24-hour news. But when the fullness of time was come, it was right on time. God is always right on schedule. I just got a couple more notes. Go to Galatians 6. Galatians 6. I like this verse a whole lot too. Oops. Galatians 6 and verse 9. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season, right on time, we shall reap if we faint not. Use the time that we have wisely, because the harvest will come at just the right time. Harvest does not come in the springtime. We do all the work in the springtime. We do all the maintaining in the summertime so that we can harvest in the fall. If we try to rush things, it does not work. If we wait, it's hard to harvest when it's buried under the snow. God's always right on schedule. As I was putting this, I was thinking, you know what, there's some hymns that talk about time. And there are more hymns and gospel songs than this. I just threw a few down here. Day by Day, that's kind of obvious. Time's mentioned in the title there. Take time to be holy. O God, our help in ages. There's a time reference. Abide with me. And I need thee every hour. And the one I already referenced, I don't have it listed here, work for the night is coming. And so these last two notes are held over from last week. We need to strive to make the most of every moment. We mentioned it already in the notes today, but it was in the conclusion of last week. Make the most of every moment. Time is short. Eternity is long. So I need to make the most of the life that God has given me right now. And that what we were just talking about, understand that God's timing is perfect. But God, God understands. I may not think God understands. I may ask God if he understands. But God understands. Time. I had thought, again, I mentioned this last week, I thought, well, there'd be 1 week, and then last week I told you, well, we're going to have one more, maybe two. Probably this one as the last, because I think I do want to build a lesson or so from the devotional, and then I've got the working on the one that'll have either Christmas week. Christmas is what, a Thursday this year? So either it'll be the week leading into Christmas or the Sunday following. Talking about Christmas, some intriguing thoughts that have been percolating in my head for a year. But time, use it wisely. It doesn't matter if you have a head full of hair, no hair, or gray hair. We all have time. And none of us know how much time. So honestly, we're all in the same boat. We may have more time or less time, but we need to use the time that we have wisely to accomplish the purpose that he's called us to. Father, thank you so much for the day, for your goodness to us. Father, thank you for the many, many blessings that you've given. Father, blessings including time. May you be honored and glorified with the way that we use our time. And may we use it to please you. Be with the service to come. Father, would you open our hearts, help us to listen attentively, help us to rejoice in you. Help us, Father, as we sing praises. God, might we sing from our hearts. And Father, as we hear your word preached, might we open our minds, open our hearts to hear what you have for us, Father, to think about it, to meditate upon it, to put it to practice, that we can live in a way that glorifies you, we ask. In your name, amen. Have a great day.